midterms are always hard about enthusiasm, and that's why traditionally the midterm elections have not been favorable to the sitting president, because there's a sense of, well, we got our guy in, midterms don't matter that much. This is an example this year where that has been turned on its head.
Just a few months ago, the midterms did not look good for Democrats, but the momentum may now be swinging in their favor. In the latest NBC News poll, Republicans have a narrow lead in congressional preference, while threats to democracy has now moved ahead of cost of living as the top issue for voters. Democrats have also narrowed the enthusiasm gap. 68% of Republicans surveyed say they will have a high level of interest in the upcoming midterms versus 66% for Democrats. With us tonight, Jason Johnson, a politics and journalism professor at Morgan State University. He's also an MSNBC political contributor. And David Jolly, a former Republican and former member of the U.S. House of Representatives. He's now chairman of the Serve America movement, and he is also an MSNBC political contributor. Gentlemen, it is good to see you both. I'm going to pose the same question to both of you. And Dr. Johnson, I'm going to begin with you. What do you think it is that's actually moving those numbers?
Well, it's two things. Abortion, and abortion. Oh, I guess that's three. Yeah, that's what it is. Like, objectively, it is the concern about the overturning of Roe versus Wade that has moved what were previously probably going to be unenthusiastic or sometimes despondent Democratic voters. You can go back to March or April of this year, and the primary concerns were not just the economy, but Joe Biden's failure to do anything about police brutality, the administration's failure to do anything about voting rights. There were real concerns that this administration was already stuck in the water a year, 18 months into this term. But now that the Republican Party has achieved their 40-year goal of overturning Roe versus Wade with an absolutely illegitimate Supreme Court, it has galvanized voters. And the biggest change that I've seen is not just all that enthusiasm, but it's enthusiasm, Alicia, at the local level, because you've got senators who had no chance of being in the lead, leading now in important states, while at the same time, Joe Biden is still underwater on his approval ratings.
David, I appreciate that Dr. Johnson gave me a chance to test my mathematical abilities at 11 p.m. at night with that little equation up top. Do you think it really is that simple? Is it the government overreach on this question of abortion, or is there more going on here? Are there atmospherics, things like inflation, the way that people feel when they go to the grocery store, the way they feel when they fill up the tank? And some perception now that they're watching Democrats actually move legislation through Congress, some sense that, hey, maybe government can get something done.
I'm going to make friends with both of you. I think it's all of it. I think, look, the Dobbs decision is a major contributor to this. And I look at it kind of like this, Alicia. In the midterms, we know historically the party out of power typically advances. That is typically because the incoming president generally make some bold ideological moves, right? They ran on a bold agenda. They pass a bold agenda. And frankly, we're a nation that doesn't absorb the shock to the system that well. And so there's a reflexive response historically. In this case, though, I think what you've seen from the Biden administration, I know it frustrates many, maybe activists within the Democratic Party, but you've seen a slow and steady incremental approach to progress and legislating where he has significant achievements for Democrats to run on. But the bold swing remains over on the right, on the conservative side, reflected in the January 6 revelations that have come out, the continued culture wars, the election denying, and yes, a Republican-led Supreme Court that repealed Roe v. Wade. And so the shock to the system right now is a country saying, wait a minute, this stuff that's happening over on the right, I don't want any more of. That's what we saw in 18, in 20, and I think going into 22. You're seeing this coalition of Democratic performing majorities kind of decide, are we in this in 22 together like we were in 18 and 20? I think that's the trend we're studying right now going into November.
David, I also want to know, Donald Trump may be considering delaying a 2024 announcement until after November, fearing he might get blamed for a bad Republican showing. Is he right to worry? Does he walk away without that blame either way?
So, look, if we try to get into Donald Trump's vanities, I think there's a couple things competing even within his own head and heart, which is this. He wants to declare now so that he can he can keep the spotlight off of McConnell and McCarthy and up-and-comers like Ron DeSantis. But here on good authority, Alicia, is one of the major reasons why he cannot declare. The RNC is currently paying Donald Trump's legal expenses. And if he were to declare and become a candidate, the RNC's neutrality rules would kick in, and it raises the question if the RNC can continue to pay to underwrite Donald Trump's legal defense. So it may be Donald Trump now has these handcuffs on. He needs to declare politically, but financially he might not be able to.
Dr. Johnson, what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, there's, as David said before, there's multiple reasons. Donald Trump is going to be held responsible or blamed or given credit no matter what happens with the Republican organization. Like I said, they're not a party anymore. It's a dime store front for a terrorist organization based on his personality. So it doesn't really matter. He could announce today, he could announce tomorrow, he could announce in 5 weeks, he could announce in 2024 in March. It's not going to matter because there's no other Republican, even Ron DeSantis, that could actually beat him in a semi-functional primary. So I actually think speculation as to when he announces isn't necessarily that important. What is going to be key, though, is if the Democrats end up not losing much in the House, right? Let's say they're only down 10 seats. And if they keep or actually gain seats in the Senate, then when he announces he's going to run, if he waits until after the midterms, he might be seen as a party savior or something else like that, or he might be seen to be somebody who's skiing uphill. But the consequences of announcing that you're running for president as the former guy who tried to overthrow the country after the nation repudiates you in midterm elections is not a good look. But then again, I don't think the Republicans really care about functional democracy anymore anyway.
Both of these incredible guests are staying with us. Coming up, Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, wants voters in swing states to know that he is essentially on a mission from God. More on the DeSantis doctrine when the 11th hour continues.